In this video, I'll be showing you how to boost in the Sethekk halls on your prot paladin. This boost is a bit difficult, but boosting a single person can grant them around 800,000 experience per hour at level 65 and above. It can also be used as a gold farm or even a solo leveling route in Wrath Classic. Ideally, you would want to sell this as a boost for about 60 or 70 gold per person. With 3 people, you could easily be making 200 gold every 15 minutes without even looting anything. But like I said, it is a bit difficult, so make sure you pay attention to exactly what I'm doing in the video so that you don't run into any issues when you're doing it yourself. If you find that you're having trouble pulling this off and you need some help, feel free to join my Discord where we have a big community of Paladin players who are always ready to help you get going. There's a link in the description to join. And next, I'll go over the gear and spec that I use to farm Sethekk. Here's the spec that I'm using to farm Sethekk. The only difference between this and the Slave Pen spec was that I dropped Heart of the Crusader in favor of Stoicism for an extra 30% reduction on my stuns, and that is really nice because the birds at the end of Sethekk actually have a stun that will hit you sometimes, and this really improves the safety of the run having this. You don't need it for the large majority of my runs. I actually did not have this and I was just using Heart of the Crusader, but once I swapped over I found it was noticeably better and I died a lot less often. So if you're having trouble with the stuns, pick up Stoicism. If you don't care, you can just put it back into Heart of the Crusader. The gear that we're using is again a high avoidance set. I like to get above 90% avoidance. This set is identical to the Slave Pen set. The only difference is the shield. Everything else is exactly the same. So as long as you were able to pull off the Slave Pens, then you should be able to pull off Sethekk. In order to pull off this boost, you need to know about a few mobs which are priority kill targets. If you don't nuke down these mobs during the run, you'll quickly find that this becomes impossible to pull off, so it's very important that you know which mobs to kill quickly and which ones to leave alive. The first mob you need to worry about is the Time Lost Controller. This mob has a mind control totem that he will drop after about 15 seconds of combat. If you don't kill him quickly, once he drops the totem, you'll be mind controlled and drop combat instantly. This can also kill your boosties if they happen to get in combat with you, as the mobs will all just run directly at them once you get MC'd. There are 9 Time Lost Controllers before the first boss, and a potential of 2 more in the room directly after the first boss. In order to quickly identify them, I've changed the color of their nameplates in Plater so that they're easier to see, and to target them quickly, I also use a macro that I'll put on screen now, and I'll also put it in the description if you want to copy and paste it. Most of the time when you're pulling a Time Lost Controller, you want to make sure to have Seal of Vengeance up and start attacking him as soon as you get in combat with him to make sure that he dies before he drops his totem. If for some reason you can't get him down in time, you can also bubble as soon as he drops the totem and you can avoid the MC, which will give you a little bit of extra time to kill the totem and then kill him, but most of the time you don't need to do this as you'll have a lot of damage with all the mobs attacking you. The next mob to worry about is the Sethekk Oracle. These mobs have a very hard-hitting chain lightning ability that also silences you for 5 seconds. Having multiple of these at the same time is very dangerous. If they chain the silence on you for too long, you won't be able to seal swap between Seal of Vengeance and Seal of Light, and you'll probably die. These only spawn in the room before the boss, and then the hallway and the room right after the boss. I don't typically use a macro to target them, but I have changed the color of their nameplates in Plater to target them right after I kill any Time Lost Controllers. If you pull one of these, I highly recommend that you burn them down before you move on to the next pack. The next mob to consider is the Cobalt Serpent. These have really high damage and a very annoying knockback. Anytime you have one of these, you should probably use Seal of Light so that you don't die. These should be your kill target after any controllers or oracles are dead. After you go up the stairs, you'll no longer encounter any oracles or controllers. Instead, you now have to deal with the Sethekk Prophets, which are by far the most annoying mob. These mobs have a fear that lasts a really long time, and if you get feared with too many mobs, you're going to take a ton of damage, and you'll probably just run into more packs with more Prophets who will also fear you, and then you'll pull more Prophets, and those will fear you, and you will die. These are extremely annoying, and you need to make sure to kill them as soon as humanly possible, and also you can chain stuns, silences, and pretty much everything else you have. Otherwise, it's basically a guaranteed death. Now that you know which targets to prioritize, we can finally get started with the run. To start the run off, we're going to be using a kill and drag strategy to nuke down the high priority kill targets. Basically, we're going to be pulling a lot of mobs and then use the parry haste to kill the Time Lost Controllers very quickly. Every time you pull a pack with a Time Lost Controller or an Oracle in it, you'll stop and kill it before you move on to the next one. Using this strategy, we can pull everything up to the first boss in around 4 minutes total. Make sure you always face the mobs as they do hit extremely hard, and if you turn your back to them for just a couple seconds, you're going to die. The mobs in these first few rooms have a very annoying thunderclap ability that they will spam on you, so it'll pretty much have about 100% uptime. unless you're spamming Dispel or using Blessing of Freedom. So every time you need to move from one pack to the next, you'll have to Freedom yourself or Dispel and try to get out of there as quick as possible. You'll be using Seal of Vengeance to kill the controllers and then swap over to Seal of Light to heal up if you need to. If you find that you're taking too much damage, after the first room is cleared, you can stop and kill a few of the other mobs before you move on. I recommend you do at least keep a few alive, as that extra parry haste damage really does come in handy when you need to nuke down these controllers. By the time you've cleared the first room, you should have already popped your Avenging Wrath, your Divine Protection shield wall, as well as your Colossus trinket. Proper usage of your abilities is what's really going to make this a lot easier. If you're too scared to press your buttons, then you're going to run into a lot of problems. Make sure you're also using your Hand of Reckoning taunt. It's a brand new taunt that we have that also causes damage when you're using it as a pull, and it's very nice to get that initial damage on a controller as well as pulling it from a distance. The damage was pretty high on me in this pull in particular, so I did stop here and heal up with Seal and Judgment of Light, and I did kill off some of these targets before moving on. This is something that you should get used to doing if you plan on doing this. You really have to judge whether or not you're taking too much damage before you move on. It only takes a few runs of practice before you realize when and where you need to swap to Seal of Light. Once you're ready to move on, you can use Blessing of Freedom and start running again. I swap back to Seal of Vengeance, and then we're going to target the next time lost controller that we encounter, and we're going to nuke him down, as well as the Oracle. Doing this kill and drag strategy all the way up to the first boss basically means that you'll never drop combat a single time. If you find that your runs are taking too long, try and check the timer at which you get to the first boss. It should be around 4 minutes and 30 seconds. All of the kills up to this point will grant experience to anyone who is sitting at the instance portal. However, once you get into the tunnel right before the first boss, after you kill the time lost controllers, you should do a ready check so that your boosties know that it's time to move up. I'll show you where the boosties should stand later on in the video, but for now I'm going to continue on with the run. You don't have to kill this first boss. In fact, you can just run right through him into the next room and he'll reset. When you finally get into this room, you'll want to pull everything except for the group that's right before the stairs. Sometimes this group on the left will have a time loss controller as well as an oracle, and you need to nuke those down before swapping to the serpent. If it doesn't have those, you can just kill the serpent and then move on. The same thing goes for the pack that's right next to the stairs. Each lockout is different for whether or not these packs will have time loss controllers or oracles, so you really just have to play it by ear and target them if you see them. As long as you've already killed a time loss controller or an oracle, you should swap over to Seal of Light anytime you're fighting one of these cobalt serpents, like I said, as they do very high damage. After you've killed your priority kill targets, you're ready to move over to the next pack by the stairs, doing the same thing. Pull this serpent and the two guards at the top of the stairs all the way into the next room with the smaller birds. You can kill these in a corner to avoid the knockback. Once you've killed the serpent here, you can pull whatever's left into the next group, which is going to be your first prophet pack. Remember that these prophets have a fear that is very, very annoying and can cause you to die very quickly. It's very important that you nuke these down as quickly as possible while chaining stuns and silences on them. Almost every single pack from here all the way until the last boss will have some iteration of 1 or 2 prophets per group. It's very important that anytime you see a group with 2 prophets, you make sure that you have some cooldowns available to stop their fear casts when they happen. Most of the time, you can nuke down one prophet without them casting fear, but by the time you get to the second one, he'll start casting fear at you, and you're going to need a way to stop it. You should try and plan out what you're going to do to the prophet to stop his fear before it happens. For instance, you may want to save your Avenger Shield for the Prophet pack so that you can use it to silence him when he starts to fear you, or you may want to save your Avenging Wrath for nuking him down quickly before he casts it. You may want to save your Bubble for if you get feared you can use it as an emergency, etc, etc. After a lot of practice, I no longer really have trouble with the fear, and if you do get feared, a lot of times you can survive it as long as you don't run into another pack. Just remember to keep practicing and you will get it eventually. You'll also notice that we do continue to use the kill and drag strategy. You should try and do this as much as possible to maximize your damage output. It's important to note that you should pull these mobs back after you kill the prophets so that you're within range of the boosties. The 2 groups that we just killed are just shy of the experience range of the boosties, so just pull them like I did here and you'll be fine. This same strategy of killing the prophets and then moving on to the next group is going to repeat all the way until the last boss. As long as you're getting that part down, you should be just fine in getting this done. Just remember, Seal of Vengeance to do damage, Seal of Light to heal up. I'm going to let the video play out at normal speed until the last boss because this part is honestly the hardest part of the dungeon, so some people might want to study it and see what I'm doing. Now, if you don't really care about that and you're confident you can do it on your own, then go ahead and skip to the next timestamp where we're going to be killing the boss. Now that you're at the last pack, you can either kill it completely and swap over to a ret spec and ret gear, or you can just kill the prophet and drag the rest of the group into the boss and start killing him as prot. This will ensure you have a steady supply of mana and damage if you want to kill him as protection. Overall, a dual spec ret will save about 30 seconds, but if you don't have a decent ret set, then killing the boss as prot is perfectly acceptable as well. I've successfully done both of these options in under 15 minutes. You just need to make sure that you LOS his arcane explosion and then kill him as fast as you possibly can. When the boss starts getting really low, you can do a ready check to make sure your boosties have time to run to the portal, as they will be in a secondary spot that I will show you, but after you kill the boss, you can just run down the stairs and straight out the instance portal. And finally, I'll show you where the boosties should stand. They should move from the instance portal after your first ready check before the first boss. All they need to do is take a left at the first room and then go all the way straight to the end. This spot ensures that they get experience from pretty much anywhere in the dungeon. From my testing, this becomes better than the slave pens at about level 65. A solo boostie will get around 200,000 experience every single time you do this. Because of this, it's a very valuable boost and you can sell it for high prices. I've successfully boosted 3 different characters in here all the way up to 70, and it's definitely something that I'll be returning to in the future. If you found today's content enjoyable, please drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel where I do these kinds of things all the time. I do also have a Twitch channel that I will put in the description for you to follow, as well as a link to the Discord. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.